Hello and welcome back to Snap and Towels. Thank you for joining us for episode 6. This is a late night edition. Kyle joining me on the West Coast. Kyle, how's it going?
Partner, doing good over here. Having a little away game tonight, not in the main office, but we'll make it work for the
Your
listeners.
satellite studio. I love it.
Exactly.
I
On
love
the
it.
road.
Pretty wild weekend this weekend.
It's true. A lot to talk about, a lot to unpack here, but I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, for the most part, kind of felt like the top dogs kind of found their rhythm with two of our favorites stumbling, Georgetown and Jacksonville. Georgetown losing to Princeton. I mean, like I said last week, you really can't sleep on any of these Ivy League teams. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Everybody knows about Yale and Penn, but that second-tier Ivy League, your Princetons, your Browns, your Harvards, you really can't sleep on those guys. A massive win for Princeton. They're ready to make a push for the Ivy League. I think, nobody can overlook them at this point. I mean, we had Georgetown penciled in as a legit top 3 team. Maybe the most complete offensive and defensive units in the country.
It's true. We saw it, but a classic case of the fat cat, as we say. I think Georgetown came out and overlooked Princeton. I think it doesn't. Georgetown's played a tough schedule thus far. They've seen probably a team that's more complete than Princeton. Princeton had some sweet uniforms the equipment manager threw at them on a Saturday afternoon tilt. Afternoon tilt.
All 3 of their kits, all their combinations are absolutely money. Their whites, their white tops, their black tops, their orange tops, which they were rocking against Georgetown, look absolutely badass. And you got to note the stars on the sleeves to represent all the natties that Princeton's racked up.
Nothing
over
recent,
years.
but they had their championships on the sleeve.
Nothing recent is right. Yeah.
But Alex Slasher with 5 goals. He lit it up. I saw one late in the game that was noticeable. I think it put the nail in the coffin where he just absolutely got leveled going to the cage. Got real excited after the goal. That was fun to see.
Slusher with back-to-back massive weeks. Pretty sure he dumped in 4 against Maryland last week, and to come back with another hammer of a game, 5 goals against Georgetown. And it's worth noting, I'm looking at Inside Lacrosse right now. I'm looking at all these box scores. I'm seeing all these kind of crooked number scores, high teens, some with low 20s. This is kind of an old school 10-8 game. And, we were talking this weekend and before the show, in these lower scoring games, which we don't see as many of these days, like if you register like a 1-in-1 day or 2 goals and 1 assist, like that's a massive day, massive contribution. But if you dump in 5 goals in a 10-8 win over top 3 team, I mean that's game of the year material.
Balling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're really feeling yourself. Sam English, I think the 2 of them together is a great combination. The Ivy League, we see a lot of pairing attackmen. We don't see full units like you see in the ACC with 3 guys. You see a lot of 2 and then a third guy that can put one in here and there. But I think that's a deadly combination, and they're clearly finding a rhythm with each other. So to take, and we got to talk about what they did in the middle of the field. They really ran on a Georgetown team that likes to run on people and that have poles all on close and in the middle of the field that could score. I think Princeton just said, hey, we got a guy too.
Yeah, no doubt. This kid Andrew Song for Princeton, their pole is he wreaks havoc between the lines. He's fun to watch. He de-twigged one guy, he stripped a guy twice, had a countless GBs, maybe the most, aside from Slusher, most valuable player of the day, just really making noise in the clearing game, in the riding game, on the wings for faceoffs. Really love Andrew Song's game.
Yeah, being that energizer bunny in a game where energy was the difference. Georgetown doesn't come off the bus. Princeton's at home with new kids. It's a tale as old as time. So congrats to Princeton. Shout out.
One guy for Georgetown who did come off the bus was their goalie, who comes off the bus every week. Kyle's a big fan of him. McEnany.
My breakout player of the week last week. So you can say I'm a fan.
No doubt. Princeton's goalie also matched them. They both had 16 saves. Eric Peters, don't want to overlook that. You win a 10-8 game, you have 16 saves. Princeton had all the right things going for them. They had two two attackmen leading the way with big numbers, and then a goaltender keeping them in the game and ultimately putting them over the top. So credit to Princeton.
Absolutely. A team we were kind of bummed about the outcome. We had eyes. Jacksonville, Utah hurt. We said it. We never called it was going to be a Jacksonville. We both went with Jacksonville due to our loyalty and the love they give snapping towels, and what they've done this season. They've earned it, coming in at the polls at 11th, 10th, 11th. There's some different polls.
10, 11, depending on where you're looking at. Yeah,
highest seed in program or highest ranking in program history. But we said the whole time, Utah is an evenly matched team, talent-wise and physicality and athleticism. So I wish it was a better game. I thought the energy was there on both sides. I just thought Jacksonville got a little careless. And storyline for me was Luke Millikens not playing in the second half.
Yeah, we're not sure what happened there. We doubt he got pulled. He's one of the better keepers in the country as of the first half of the season, just given his performance. He let in 6 first-half goals. He had 7 saves. It wasn't like he was white hot or anything, but I highly doubt Galloway would have pulled him. So I'm thinking there had to be an injury or something. Hope Millikens okay. I really honestly it was a tale of two halves. Jacksonville went up 3-0 early in the game. They came out hot, and I thought, honestly, I'm going to have to disagree with you, Kyle. You felt the energy was there on both sides. Honestly, after that 3-0 start, I thought there was limited energy coming from the Dolphins. I thought they were pretty flat. Utah went on an 8-1 run after Jacksonville went up 3-0, and the team looked completely different in the second half, particularly without Millikens. Clearly, he's their anchor, their rock, their energizer. Definitely a different squad without him. But Jacksonville, not only do they look flat, like they had a bunch of uncharacteristic turnovers. Every time I've watched them this year, they've been really smart. They've garnered high quality looks. I'm pretty sure they were 0 on the man up tonight, which is very unlike them. They've got shooters everywhere. They have finishers. Bo Hunter is a man up stud. I was really shocked. There was one in particular. They had a 1:30 man up, non-releasable.
Late in the third.
Yeah, late in the third at a pretty pivotal point. I think they were down 3 goals.
Yeah, huge. One was locked in. Same guy, 2 penalties, 1 to the head, locked him in. It was a crucial minute and a half.
You need to come away with 1 goal there. Maybe if you come away with 2, that's gravy. But you need 1 goal there. About 10 seconds into the man up, Jacksonville tossed it right into the stick of a Utah defenseman.
They get a fast break, good look. Pissed it back to Jacksonville. Jacksonville got the backup.
Takes a shot with no backup.
And then, which I thought was bold, but then looking back on it, I was like, 9 times
going for the jugular.
10 times out of 10, that's going to be pulled up in the film room, and the guy's going to say, let's settle down in this situation, because you're going to want to milk that clock up 3 on the road with a locked-in minute penalty. But also a kid that stood out to me for Jacksonville was Jeremy Winston. I think he looked super quick. He was the only multi-goal scorer for them. He looked extremely athletic and was beating guys clean. So to have him find a rhythm, I think is a good sign for Jacksonville. But the loss is no bueno with their record. They're probably going to fall to around the 18-19 ranks with some wins in the Ivy.
Yeah, Jacksonville sitting at 5-2 now, early March. It's I don't want this to be overreaction Sunday, overreaction Monday, whatever you want to call it, but it's really is going to damage their at-large chances if they don't end up winning the SoCon. And it's not a foregone conclusion that they do that. Richmond and High Point are really good squads. Those are going to be tough in-conference games. Yeah, absolute battles.
I think I was getting all the energy from Booker Corrigan on the call. He was throwing some wild comments out there the whole game. I think my funniest was a pipe, and he goes, "What is that, Post Malone?"
Yeah, it's pretty legendary. Yeah, Booker's always good for some.
He brought out the stuffed turkey too. Some people, it's an acquired taste. I take it for what he is. Some people kind of think he's a little silly, but I think if it gets people engaged, kind of looking at the TV a different way, like, do they just say that. I think it's a good thing for the sport. So
No, I
I'm
couldn't
here for
agree
Booker.
more. I'm here for Booker Corrigan. I actually have been since his calls on the MIAA back in the late 2000s. But I love Booker Corrigan, and especially Kyle and I have harped on it several times on Snapping Towels. The broadcasting quality, the commentating and analyst quality has been poor across the board. Once you get outside of your Quentin, your Kark, and now Ryan Powell, who's doing Syracuse games, the quality it kind of falls off a cliff. So I'm all for Booker Corrigan being in the booth, being engaging. He knows the game. He's been around it forever. Love Booker Corrigan.
Another SoCon battle kind of fell off at the end, but was a 1-goal game late in the third quarter. Duke High Point.
Yeah, I was really disappointed by one particular play in the fourth quarter. This was a really fun game, back and forth. Both teams were kind of throwing haymakers at each other. It wasn't they weren't trading goals. They were kind of trading like 3 to 4 goal flurries, which to me is a lot of fun, right? Watching offenses like really get in grooves, scoring in bunches. Like that's what lacrosse is all about. Scoring in bunches, scoring quickly. High Point was incredibly efficient with their opportunities. Like they got dominated at the faceoff X. They got quality looks. Asher Nolting and Braden Maea are disgusting. I love those two together. Couldn't be more fun to watch. But the play in the fourth quarter that really angered me, a High Point midfielder caught it from about 10, got a nice feed from Asher Nolting right in his box area, steps in, cans what we think he cans a really nice high bounce shot that clearly hits the net. Every High Point player, including the High Point bench, celebrates. Every Duke defenseman slumps their shoulders like, oh, damn, like we just got scored on. And there was no whistle. High Point's down by 4 at this point. They would have pulled it within 3. Instead, no whistles called, no goal called. Everybody's confused. The Duke goalie picks it up, launches an outlet, clears it. Duke scores on that next possession.
Yeah, you hate to see that. You almost wish there was a solution for that. We've seen it in the playoffs before. You could add a replay. The production's not there on a Tuesday and
right.
at High Point at all.
And you can't really stop the game. Lacrosse is football is so many stoppages, right? Lacrosse is such a continuous game. You can't really just like stop the play.
And I could see it happening. The heavy nets don't tend to move as much on a high bounce where the velocity gets taken off. Cam saw it move. We'll give the benefit of the doubt to the ref. It was a night game, a lot of stuff going on. But I think the player of the game was Sean Lully, and it's no surprise. He had 5 and 3, absolute stud. He's playing attack the whole game. I think he crushed it. And then you saw Duke's depth. You see guys that haven't really hopped in the scorers box yet go off for a couple goals, which is rare to see 7 games in for Duke. Or not for Duke, but it's rare to see for other teams. You kind of expect it for Duke, but especially this year, Cameron Bador, he had a couple. Dyson Williams, obviously, no usual, but also surprising one is Brennan O'Neill not being in the box.
Yeah.
Held in check.
Kyle was particularly high on Brennan O'Neill in the preseason, as I think everybody was. Kyle still is. I still am, and we all know what he can do. We've all seen him do incredible things. I don't think anybody would argue that he's the most talented player on the Duke offense, but right now it's kind of the Lully and Nikai Montgomery show.
Absolutely. Nikai also had 5 goals with a short stick on him the whole game. So
yeah, I really don't understand that. That was a questionable call from High Point, from Torpy and his staff. Why was there a short stick on Nikai Murray so much? Didn't make a lot of sense to me. I will say they were sliding relatively quickly, but there should be a pole shadowing him at all times. He's unguardable with a short stick. He gets their offense going. He's the absolute party starter. He's kind of become, in the last 2 to 3 weeks, he's really been pouring in a lot of goals and assists, but he's kind of the hockey assist master, which is a huge nod to him from the Snap and Towels crew. We appreciate a hockey assist more than most. Love what Nikai Murray is doing right now. He's really taking over games.
I think a kid that popped off the screen where you're like, whoa, where'd this dude come from was Jack Sawyer, the Maryland transfer that didn't get a play in the first couple games because he didn't get his papers released.
Yep.
Maybe some gamesmanship by Tillman doing something sketchy in the transfer portal, not letting him go.
High Point happened to play Maryland early in the year too.
Game one, yeah. So
Yeah.
he wasn't allowed to play for the first couple, got his stuff figured out, had 4-1. He looked like a Maryland player. Talent wise and production wise, shot 50%. So he had a hell of a show out versus big first competition.
Yeah, Jack Sawyer, I think is a pretty amazing third piece to add there with Asher Nolting and Braden Maia. I mean, that's that has to be the best attack unit in the SoCon. I'd be shocked if as much as we love our Finns, I don't think that their first three attackmen are as good as that across the board. Yeah, that SoCon is going to be a really interesting race.
I'm excited. It's kind of a conference that's traditionally, it's growing.
It's growing. It's a relatively young conference. Kyle and I weren't super high on the SoCon and the storylines surrounding it going into the year, and I'm here for it.
I'm higher on the SoCon than the Patriot League this year.
Absolutely. No, that's not even a question. Yeah.
So, cheers to the SoCon. That's going to be a good playoff run, and we'll have eyes on snapping towels. We'll be there every step of the way.
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking of teams that are no stranger to some playoff runs, Denver traveled to Chapel Hill to take on the Tar Heels. Denver came to play. Like, they weren't playing around. They're coming off some embarrassing losses. You know, I mean, we know Jacksonville's really good, but Bill Tierney's not satisfied with the Jacksonville loss. So look, Denver came to play. I was really happy to see Jack Hanna like really start to come into his own. He exploded for 3 goals in the third quarter, scoring in all different ways. I mean, we knew this from the jump, but it's clear that he's got PLL written all over him.
Yeah.
And
he's
as far
extremely
as UNC,
skilled too.
He's disgusting.
Yeah,
really nice sized kid, great athlete, great hands, really good feel for the game. As far as UNC goes, I think we're pleased to see that they're kind of coming into their own from the midfield. Lance Tillman and Schertzinger are kind of becoming a nice little combo at the midfield. But UNC's close defense remains an Achilles heel.
Yeah, we didn't touch on that last episode, but the moment the game turned on and we were talking while watching it, we were like, this is a perfect game for Denver's offense.
Perfect matchup, yeah.
Because you have both offenses are good. UNC is definitely better, but Denver can score, especially coming off some bad losses where they've really got things dialed in. You just saw a lot of players on their depth chart have multiple hat tricks. I think they had three guys with hat tricks. So they were liking what they're seeing. Every team that's played UNC is pretty much like what they saw. So I think we knew it was going to be fireworks from the jump.
Yeah, and it was. And Denver has a little midfielder, Michael Lampert, number 2. I think he's 5'6".
Yeah, it was the only guy when ESPN popped up his name and how many goals he had on the day. I was the only guy with his height next to it.
Yeah, it was a little questionable. But even before that happened, Kyle and I were on the phone and we both said, "Wow, number 2 is not very
small.
Big out there."
No, he's a small dude.
But he's an absolute ankle breaker and adds a really nice spark for this Denver offense that frankly needs it. Coming off a tough first 5 games. Denver needs that spark, and I think he can provide it. He can dodge against anybody.
Honestly, this is Denver's game if Chris Gray isn't such a lion. 6 goals. Yeah. He was feeling it, pulls up on fast break in the 4th, stings one righty, far side. He really put his whole game on display late in that game when it mattered, and really took some kill shots at a Denver team that was really all over the place. Most notably, the penalties they had late in the game were just sloppy. Bill was in the ref's ear the whole game, which to me, I think these refs are kind of sick of it. I think back in the day, I think it's a little old. Every game I watch with Denver, it's like, let's just have the camera on Bill Tierney losing his mind at the refs for calling a good call. It's like
just calling it like they see it.
calling it out. Yeah, nothing. I wasn't ever like, oh wow, they're getting shafted with that call. It's like, no, that was a full on slash to the leg, and Bill's at the 50-yard line, like making his case. I'm like, what could he possibly want from this ref? He's just like, it seems like that old grumpy guy that just wants his way.
Yeah, I mean, he's
kind of getting old for me.
He's been doing it forever. I mean, I think, given his resume, and I think probably he's probably seen fruits of that labor. I'm sure he's witnessed refs changing their tune or changing the way they call the rest of the game. Just in given the longevity of his career, I'm sure he's seen that make an impact on games. So I don't see him abandoning that anytime soon. And that's also just kind of his personality.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely Tierney definitely gives it to the refs. I want to go back to Chris Gray. Kyle mentioned some of these fourth quarter kill shots. He had a 3-point spree that might have been 3 of the nicest points of the day. The first being just an absolutely disgusting skip pass, I believe, to Solomon on the backside, righty. Chris Gray was on the opposite side wing, high wing, splits right to left, back to his right, and just kind of like takes a step away off his back foot and just throws an absolute rainbow dime to Nicky Solomon right to the box area, sticks it. Seems like a couple of plays later, UNC gets a fast break. What else is new? Chris Gray gets the ball on the lefty wing, catches it with his left hand, has a little bit more space than I think anyone would expect.
It was in transition. It was like a turnover in transition.
Yeah. It was in kind of a broken play. I think Chris Gray had a little bit more space than anybody would expect him to have. Even I think he, for a second, had to kind of look around and say, wow, and there's nobody around me. He took maybe 2 or 3 crow hops, switched it to his right hand to make it a harsher angle. And I think a lot of players would have looked for a trailer or at this point might have even pulled it out. Chris Gray just absolutely roped one to the far corner. And then he comes out with an absurd game winner, dodging from the top center, left to right split, and just sticks low and away off the pipe. 3 straight points. Chris Gray wins the game. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you got to do when you're that grad student. He stayed.
He stayed for that moment.
That's what happens. You just got no one else had a big game for UNC without him being involved. And it was just one of those things where he's been doing it for so long. He's been doing it since he was a freshman at BU. So
yeah, just another 8-point day.
We're not surprised here on Snapping Cows, but
no, not at all.
Cheers to Chris Gray and that epic performance. And we love watching an all-star just take it into his own hands at the end of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Witnessing the UVA Hopkins game because it was pretty much over at the first faceoff. Talk about it.
Yeah, that was a really disappointing game. I don't think we expected it to be a nail biter, but we'd like to see Hopkins kind of make a stride each week. They're just not there yet. They clearly can't run with Virginia. I mean, look, most teams can't. Virginia, in my opinion, right now is the best team in the country. I think maybe 3 or 4 teams could probably run with them right now. Hopkins clearly is not one of them. Hopkins continues to just absolutely hemorrhage blood during the clear. They cannot clear the ball successfully.
I feel bad for their goalie. He's a stud. He makes ridiculous saves, and then it's
their
painful.
Goalie is an absolute stud. Every Hopkins game I've watched, he's one of the better players in the field, making big-time saves, and it's just second-chance opportunities on the reg. And if you give Virginia second-chance opportunities, they're going to hang almost 20 on you, which they did. I think they scored 18 goals. But yeah, I mean, there's 19-8. I think was the final score. Nothing really to see here.
Nothing too pretty to talk about. Yeah, we were. I was kind of 1 foot in, but it's a good broadcast every time at UVA, and you're going to get a game that you're going to watch with UVA playing Hopkins. Traditionally, it's a fantastic game, but extremely lopsided from the jump. The worst part for me was late in the third quarter, up 14 goals. You got your whole starting defense in and attack in. And you just see a terrible injury that you hate to see with Cade Sawstead, who's their number one cover guy.
Yeah.
And it was one of those kind of awkward bailout table guys going underneath, gets table topped, flying and this kid's just sitting on the pipe, kind of coming to help out, and his knee gets taken out, like that classic NFL quarterback in the pocket type of injury. So unfortunately, going into UNC this weekend, your number one cover guy is probably out. We don't know. Good
news for Chris Gray, bad news for the Wahoos in Virginia. I really hope he's okay. I hope it looked a lot worse than it actually was.
True.
One thing I want to say about Hopkins, we've harped on it enough. This will probably be the last time I mention it this year, unless they're on national TV and lay another egg. They generated 2 shots on goal in the entire first quarter, and they had the ball for the last 2 minutes of the first quarter and were unable to generate a look. Like they just can't manufacture looks for themselves. They don't have the athletes. It's unfortunate. And
Hopkins played 5 face-off guys, so
yeah, that's never a recipe for success. But yeah, UVA smoked them. Not much else to see here. Maryland Notre Dame was much more fun to watch.
Quite the opposite. Yeah, that's the one we were really circled on our calendar, and we were talking about it last episode to length. Cam, what'd you think about it?
I was impressed. It was kind of another kind of old, similar to the Princeton Georgetown game, kind of an old school slugfest. Final score 11-9, which is kind of refreshing. Seeing all these shootouts. Both teams played really, really stout 6-on-6 for the first half, first 3 quarters. Like, it was really good defense. Both goalies absolutely went off.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of surprised that it wasn't more lopsided at half. Pretty sure it was a tie ball game at half. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
Maryland was up 1.
Okay, maybe 6-5, something like that.
Yeah, or 5-4.
5-4, 6-5. Really tight game at half. I was shocked because Notre Dame felt like they turned the ball over every other possession.
Pissed it away left and right. It's almost – they had plays where you would be like, oh, man, that's, never going to get it done. And we said last week on this podcast, Snapping Towels, you need a flawless game to be in it with Maryland at the end of the game.
Yep.
You can't be noticeably pissing the ball away, which Notre Dame did pretty much throughout the whole game. And it's a little bit of their offense. We talked about this. And I think it was blatant in this Maryland game because Maryland plays such a cohesive offense where it's really dodge, pass, shoot, dodge, look inside, bounce. There's
high quality looks all over the place.
When they have the ball, they're going to get a good look. It's not like some teams late in the game, you're like, who are they going to go to? What are they going to do? What set are they going to be in? You know what Maryland's going to do, and everyone does, and they're so efficient, you just still can't stop it. It's kind of one of those things. They've got depth.
It's almost like they're the Patriots.
I love that call. I mean, it's a –
you know what Maryland's going to do, and they generate high-quality looks every time down.
And extremely solid in both ends of the game and in between the lines. It was definitely a great athletic –
the Patriots.
Yeah, it was athletically, historically, the Patriots have reason it's been a little bit the other way, but they don't beat themselves. They play extremely good 6-on-6 offense and defense. And in the middle of the field, they have D middies that can stick it and do stick it pretty much every game. So the problem with me and this game, Notre Dame has pretty much the exact opposite feel on offense. They have the weapons, they have the talent, everything's there. Their decisions become very poor when the moment gets higher.
Yeah, even before those critical moments at the end of the game, like, honestly, Notre Dame's offense got no rhythm the entire day.
Yeah,
it was kind of unfortunate. It was a little bit of a flip-flop from the week before where their defense got absolutely exposed by Georgetown. Georgetown absolutely went off. They went up 11-2, and then Notre Dame had to really button up on offense, and I think Notre Dame went on a 10-goal run to make that game 12-11 or something like that.
Yeah.
You really saw Notre Dame do some things on offense. This week, Notre Dame's defense looked great. Enneman was an absolute stud between the pipes, as always. Notre Dame's offense, it was like, okay, it was a Kavanaugh with some kamikaze bomber dodge, that'll go every once in a while. And when it does, it's a lot of fun. It's energizing, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
You're not going to generate consistent looks that way. And honestly, it's not sustainable for the bodies of those two Kavanaughs. They're not big guys. Like, I don't want them crease diving every other possession. I don't want that.
No, and it's a low percentage look. Like, they've kind of made a name off it, but in reality, when teams are scouting and it's kind of like cats out of the bag, these are what these guys want to do. I also really liked how the refs weren't bailing them out with push calls. I think it's an easy call for the refs to do. They were looking for it. I just blacked out and forgot the coach's name, but he was looking for him. Corrigan. They wanted it. They weren't getting it, which I was excited to see because Maryland, quite frankly, played great defense in these situations. But I thought it was a great battle, or like a Final Four type battle early in the season, which we love here on Snapping Towels. And I think the play of the game was the Maryland goalie save off a 101 he turned it over behind the cage to Pat Kavanaugh.
Yep.
Stuck his stick up, grabbed it, comes around the cage. Maryland, the goalie's running back to the cage, gets in it, and just complete composure, matches stick the whole time, and
stabbed
just
it.
Boom. Snagged this ball out of thin air, and he never was guessing. It was complete locked in. Shout out Goalie Smith, the best in the business for training goalies. I know he gets his reps in there.
Easier said than done. Look, I've been stuffed one-on-one more times than I care to remember, but Kavanaugh felt like threw one or two too many fakes, and he was
expecting this guy to
had the goalie on the ground, just bury it high. He threw like 3 or 4 fakes and then tried to bury it low, and the goalie was just kind of there. I mean, it's a great save.
All over it, dude.
But I would have liked to see him just leave no doubt. And
it wasn't even that one where you're like, oh, like you're surprised that he had it, because I thought I was watching the goalie and he was with the stick the whole time.
Yeah,
you gotta watch if he's matching sticks. God damn. I was like, that is some momentum changing goals. They ride hard though. We will say they were laying body. Those kids.
No, you got to respect. I mean, look, the Kavanaugh brothers are great players, and so is their older brother, obviously. All of them ride like banshees, and you got to just absolutely love and respect that. They're totally fun to watch in the ride. They create offensive looks and goals in the ride. Even when they don't, like, it feels like it's always kind of a chore to clear against Notre Dame. And I think that kind of wears on teams over the course of 4 quarters over a long season. To me though, go ahead.
No, fire away. I don't want.
Yeah, I mean, look, to me, like, those kids can ride, but the story of the game, like when I watch Maryland, like I think they have, and I know Virginia's absolutely loaded at the midfield. I think Maryland is the best midfield unit in the country. When you have Bubba Fairman playing D midfield because of the guys you can put out there on offense. And we all know about our guy, Jonathan Donville, who's an absolute stud, number 1 overall pick in the NLL, will be a top 5 pick in the PLL draft shortly. But Kyle Long, DeMeo, Jack Brennan leading the way. Like they have a really good second line. Jack Brennan, number 41, who's an absolute stud. I love his game, leading a second line midfield.
Yeah.
Maryland's really, really tough. Really tough.
They're a bear. They're a bear for sure.
Not fun to root against. Like Maryland's, like they're tough.
We're also talking about how you mentioned Bubba Fairman's translated in D-mid. He's getting a lot of praise from his coaches and his teammates. It's the Admiral team thing to do. Why don't you leave him out there on an offensive midi that he keeps getting stuck down there? They're pulling him really quick, and I'm like,
they're subbing him too quickly. I think
if he's his first liner for the last 3 years of his career, and then he comes out and he switches to D midi, like, use that to complete advantage. And maybe they're just not doing it this early in the season, but like, you're gonna get some serious matchups on some shitty offensive middies trying to play defense which is just a matchup nightmare for a coach. So it's like, yeah, you've got this stud offensive mid who's a great athlete playing defense, and it's great. He could have the same production in points as if he was on the first midfield with getting these matchups.
Yeah, I agree. I do think they're subbing him off too quickly, but I also think we'll see plenty of that. I really do. I think when they get an ACC play, particularly in the NCAA tournament, and they got to make it to the Final Four weekend, but you kind of start to I feel like every year Memorial Day weekend, you kind of see things like that happen. You see Duke had this guy Tripucka years ago, kind of doing that, just making kind of just taking over, Haas, right?
I guess he was more of an offensive.
He was kind of a two-way midfielder, but guys in the NCAA tournament, in the Final Four weekend, they kind of leave it all out there, and you kind of see that unfold. And maybe early March, late February game, he's like, all right, look, I'm gonna save some tread on the tires. I'm hoping that's what we're seeing.
Me as well. One thing we did see notable, give love when we see it. Notre Dame, Wheaton Jack boys stepped up in the fourth quarter with some big goals. It was kind of like
goals in the fourth.
That's what we were talking about with the offense. It was kind of like we need somebody to make a play that's not the Kavanaugh's trying to dive in the crease.
Yep.
And Wheaton Jack boys was beating a pole. He beat him to the middle of the field, got a sweet goal, beat a guy underneath, had a goal. A player I wish had a better game, had a ton of turnovers and not a lot of production was Dobson. Cam was high on this guy in the first episode.
Very, very high.
Because he's got all the talent. Unfortunately, he's kind of I think going off the year he had last year, people don't know who he is now, and they're going to be all over his hands when he's trying to pull this. I
think he's drawing the pole just because of his size and the year he put together last year.
I think Jack Boys had the pole late in the game.
Okay. No, Dobson didn't look great. He didn't have a great game. Had some untimely turnovers, some sloppy play.
He has a decent game, and they contribute. The guy Westland, the third attackman, was absolute killer. He had a great move to the middle of the field to get a sick goal early in the game to give them a lot of momentum.
Yeah, it was right at the end of the half.
Westland, he was a player. I kind of is one of those spark plug.
Number 31,
he could put it in the can.
Goal at the end of the half.
Yeah, he could put it in the can on a fast break too. So a little more production out of some guys that they didn't see. We thought they had this ultra deep midfield unit. We haven't seen that really. So Notre Dame will come around. We'll see what they do.
Fine, yeah.
They'll be fine. If their defense continues the trend they're on, I think it'll be only good things coming from South Bend, unlike what we saw in the Carrier Dome with Syracuse Army.
Yeah, big win for Army. Army's really good. I think Loyola,
without their number one poll.
Yep. We don't know what the story is there. We don't know what the story is there. Kark mentioned that. We don't know if he's injured or suspended or what, but they're missing their top cover guy. Didn't bother them. They came away with a W with a pretty epic showcase of lacrosse in the Dome. Love having Carcaterra on the call in the Dome. Just a really nice display of shooting by both teams. But it was the Brendan Nickturn show. I think it's worth noting they do have some other legit scorers, like Bobby Abshire with 4 and 1. I think out of the midfield, scoring in a lot of different ways.
He's lethal.
Army's good. They're very good.
Army's no joke. They've got the athletes. They've got the D-middies. You can see it. They're disciplined in the clear. They're not pissing the ball away. This was a closer game than the score has it. I think it really got out of hand in the fourth quarter with Army kind of building that lead slowly and Syracuse getting rid of the ball faster than they got the ball. One kid for Cuse that was balling who had unreal moves was Owen Siebel. And,
he's silky. He's really good.
I think he's a great player. I think he should definitely be in the PL. I think there's room for him. Kind of like who's the lefty?
What about the Georgetown attackman, the righty? Caraway. It's kind of Caraway-esque.
Caraway, I feel like is super quick. Seabald's super slick.
Okay.
small difference, but yeah, very in the amount of racks up points pretty quick. I think they're pretty similar, but I love his
They're kind of
game.
similar sized kids.
I think Brendan Curry had a breakout game as well, and he's carrying the momentum from that. He was getting shorties occasionally, and just absolutely dusting them with speed and sticking his shots. So you love to see that from a Q's team. But overall, Brendan Nichtern got off the bus with the ball on his stick, making plays happen for that Army offense.
Yeah, Cuse's D continues to look a little bit lost to surrender 17 to Army. Army's got a good offense, but they can't keep giving up high teens. It was they look again outmatched physically, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Cuse shouldn't be outmatched physically by anybody, particularly at the defensive midfield position. They're undersized, and honestly, like, I'm kind of surprised by this with Petro at the helm now on defense. Like, I don't see a bunch of clean sliding and recovering. I see late two slides. Like, I'm just really not loving what I'm seeing from Cuse's D right now.
Yeah, guys getting open in the middle of the field, like on easy crease cuts.
It's no good. Doesn't make any sense.
I'm really not. Brett Kennedy's more of an LSM to me. I think in the PLL he'll play LSM. So I'm like, if you have this defensive lapse and you don't have, like, it's not like he's doing it. Like, like he's not even guard. He might not even guard the number one player. Why not run him as an LSM and just have
but I think honestly that speaks to their lack of depth and horses on defense. I think they need him at close T on the field at all times. Like, I think that
absolutely. I think that's why he's down there. But in my eyes, it's like your defense still isn't good. So why don't you? Yeah, why don't you throw him up? They have that kid Alesso.
He is a true LSM. Yeah, mix it up.
What's his name? The LSM that scored. He's good. Oh, Sam Alexo. He's a great LSM, but it's like Brett Kennedy is a difference maker in the middle of the field, and we saw it when he was a freshman. Also, notably, Gary had to pull Bobby Gavin from cage. They played two goalies; both of them were under 30%. So that continues to be a problem for Syracuse. And on the other side, you have a 4-year starter, Wyatt Schubert, that saved the ball at 50%. And that's the difference.
Army's always got a solid keeper.
Every year.
Kind of a cornerstone of their team, which is respect to their coach.
Army's sideline was bringing outrageous energy, and I don't, I've got my feelings about them, whatever. I thought it was pretty funny. They're like rabid dogs being held back. Like, some kid got down and started like dog crawling.
They're going absolutely nuts. Albarisi over there, just like, okay, what's going on, guys? But honestly, it was the Brendan Nichtern show, and it was great to see Seabold and Curry do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Tucker Dordevic only with 1 goal on 10 shots, 10% shooting
without Army's best cover guy on him. It's the problem. That was the problem in the game.
Probably the difference in the game there. A lot of empty possessions coming from Tucker Dordevic shots that were either saved or had no backup. It got to be better than 10%. He did, however, redeem himself today. Cuse played Hobart in the Dome today. A nice little upstate rivalry. They've played 103 times. It's the 3rd oldest rivalry in college lacrosse. I'm assuming the 2 others that are older are Harvard, Yale, and Lehigh Lafayette. That's my assumption. I'm not sure about that. Soon, snapping towels, in the near or distant future, we'll have somebody that can just say,
love a stat guy.
Can you look that up for me? But I'm pretty sure Harvard, Yale, and Lehigh Loft are probably a safe bet there. But this was a really fun game. Tucker Dordevic.
I know you love, before we get into the play, I know you love the call. We need to have a conversation about the call.
Look, I'm a huge proponent of putting Ryan Powell on as many games as possible.
We got to see him in the Final Four.
I don't think that's going to happen. I'd love maybe on the field, but he's not really an on the field guy. But he is just a pleasure to listen to in the box. He's done the last 2 Cuse ESPN games. He's just absolutely great. He only refers to his partner as partner. I'm not sure he knows his name. I don't know his name.
You refer to me as coach, and I refer to you as coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure he knew his name. I definitely don't, because Ryan only insisted on calling him partner. But his partner was trying to like stoke some old memories, some old Cuse Glory Day memories, and Ryan Powell was kind of blanking on some old Hobart games and what they do with that trophy after the game. I don't think he was really too concerned with his Hobart matchups. He did, however, make it very clear that his greatest memories from the 2000 team, winning the national championship, having 12 seniors on that team that all contributed, and he talked about how special it was for the Powell brothers to wear the number 22 for 10 years straight. And I actually remember this. This is pretty wild, but he spoke about this little memory. After he won the national championship in 2000 as a senior, he set the NCAA points record in that game. And after they won the field, Cuse fans stormed the field. He found his brother Casey and Mikey. He took his number 22 jersey off, handed it to Mikey, and said, "This is yours now." And Mikey came in the next year. No, to Mikey.
Oh, no, yeah.
And Mikey came in the next year, and the rest is history. But I'm
chilling here exactly. On a late night storytelling.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for those. I'm a total lax nerds. But I just absolutely love having Ryan Powell on the call. Special.
No, that's a legendary story from an absolute legend, and he couldn't be a chiller vibe in the booth where it's filled with kind of like crazy energy on calls, and this game in a rivalry, it's acting like it's just an everyday in the office, and he's just watching kids play ball.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. And also you can kind of tell, even when he's talking about kids making nice plays, you can just tell he's just kind of flying above everybody else on his level of play.
No, yeah, exactly. He respects great play. You almost want him to see more. It's kind of like they're not doing enough for him. But I'll give him credit. He doesn't like bad play.
No, he'll call it out.
He calls it how he sees it, and Cuse has really made it easy for him at times this season. So
another thing he said, which I'll give him a bunch of credit for, I think he has carte blanche to say whatever he wants about Syracuse lacrosse, but it was mid fourth quarter, and he and partner were just kind of chatting it up, and he said, this Syracuse team is he said this Cuse team is a few pieces away from really competing at the highest level. He made it clear that he doesn't think they're there yet. He thinks right now they need to be focusing on getting wins against nationally ranked teams. So really cool to hear just kind of the self-awareness from Ryan Powell towards the Syracuse program. He's got a great perspective. It's wonderful to listen to.
We keep seeing Owen Hiltz's absence hurt them.
Huge.
I think if you had him out there and Tucker Dordovic playing righty attack and Seabolt back there, I think it's a different
or maybe
game.
Running out of the midfield still.
Running out of the midfield would be beautiful, because then you have to bump a pull up, or you have to short stick him or Curry, which leads to problems as well. So that injury really plagues them. Goalie play and close defense plagues them just as bad, though. So
yeah, Tucker Dordovic redeemed himself. I mean, the kid had 5 and 2 today. Brendan Curry registering 5 and 1. So both of them
popped off.
10 goals between the two of them. Cuse had some new faces scoring, which I liked. Mikey Berkman and Tyler Cords both dumped in 2 each. Both bring nice little new flavor to the offense. I believe one's a freshman, one's a sophomore. So that's good to see some young faces. Hobart is pretty good. I mean, I think they're my favorite in the neck at this point, given Bryant's recent troubles, to say the least. But I mean, Hobart's offense is legit. I know Cuse's D is struggling, but for them to go in the dome and put up, 16 goals, 16. Final score was 18-16. This kid, Tommy Mott, is really good at attack. Ryan Archer is kind of his partner in crime. And then I think their best player is this kid, John Harrelly, out of the midfield, number 9. He wears a pretty ugly knee brace, but he had 4 really nice goals. This other kid, Derek Madonna, is a good midfielder. I like Hobart.
Yeah. I mean,
I also like their jerseys too. I like their kits.
Cuse also split halves with tenders. Who knows how long Gary's going to keep doing that? But it's just something that you're surprised to see coming from Syracuse.
Yeah.
One team
they have
that's
better goalie.
Yeah, it's true. One team that wasn't pulling goalies was Cornell against a good, hot Ohio State team.
The Ivy League went undefeated this weekend. Before we talk about any of these games, I just want to say that the Ivy League was 7-0. Harvard and Dartmouth coming in with W's. Dartmouth stringing together 2 straight wins. I don't know when the last time they did that was. Credit to Dartmouth. But this Ohio State Cornell game was fun. It's 2 legit top 5 teams.
Yeah, no, I was dialed in the whole time. I thought it was a lot of fun. Athletically, I think the takeaway for me was that Cornell has a lot more skill than I thought.
Yeah, CJ Kurse is really good.
CJ Kurse had a great game. They're just fundamentally
they look
fundamentally
like
there. They
have like Cornell.
Yeah. Wait, what? They look like Cornell. Yeah, I mean that's a fact. They're very efficient on offense. Connie Busick is doing a great job. These kids are all skilled, all putting passes on the ear. There's really nothing like game breaker type plays. It's just all fundamental ball.
It seems like all their goals are assisted. It's awesome.
Yeah, and kind of a shocker on the other end is you don't see Jack Myers in the scoring column for Ohio State. The defense for the Big Red was next level.
Yeah, another thing that Cornell is kind of back to, they were kind of famous for this during their heyday, mid to late 2000s. Their polls anticipating shots and booking it for the end line.
Yeah,
and
it's smart. It's like what we were talking about last week with polls just breaking out and getting transition. I don't know why we don't see it more.
These kids, as soon as they see a kid about to release a shot, these kids are booking it for the end lines. And Cornell picked up 4 or 5 extra possessions because of that. At school back in the day, we called that a cliffy. I think all teams have their own terminology for it. But Cornell is really, really good. And I was really excited about the Ivy League coming into 2022. I was particularly excited about Yale and Penn. I think Cornell is right there with them. Because Ohio State's really good. And you saw what they did to UNC. You know what they're capable of. It's a really impressive win, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to watch them play. And I think another Ivy League team that was kind of met with a very similar test to Ohio State was Yale UMass. I thought that game was thudding, hard hitting. We saw a good Yale offense kind of get stumbled, but also UMass was making those upset plays the whole game.
Shane O'Leary, number 28, had one of the nicest backhanded goals I've seen in a long time, all while drawing a flag and taking a hammer of a hit to the head to tie it up 11-11 in the fourth. It was really just like a really fun, tough UMass Yale Northeast game. Yale's attack is really good. Like this kid, Leo Johnson, the freshman, really nice player. I mean, we all know how good.
Town.
Yeah, hell yeah. We all know how good Brandow is. Cabrera's really nice compliment, but Leo Johnson, that's a real attack unit in the Ivy League. Gotta love it.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially late in the game when the game was on the line in overtime and someone needed to end it, you saw Leo Johnson really taking the ball into his own hands.
Yeah.
Eventually ending it with Brandow to throw his 4th in the net, which is a staple. He can bury with the best of them. But you kind of saw a freshman being like, I'm kind of the number 1 cover out here. Yeah,
no, that was honestly he didn't end up burying the game winner, but that was one of the most encouraging things about Yale's win was the fact that Leo Johnson, I think maybe twice, tried to take it to the rack in overtime. So that's an awesome sign.
Eager.
That is an awesome sign. Awesome sign. Another great sign for Yale. I think they've found a real face-off guy in Nick Ramsey. Kid's really good. Obviously, you can't ever replace or fill the shoes of TD Erlin.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you mean they found one? They just lost one of the best ever.
I know, but oftentimes, you lose a guy like that and you're plagued at the X for the next 3 to 4 years. This kid Nick Ramsey is really good. So that bodes well for them going into Ivy League play. UMass is a scrappy bunch, man. I was digging their
scrappy.
game.
No, the game was awesome. But like I said, I think if they played again, Yale would win by 3. They were making those plays.
Yale's a better team.
Yeah. They're making those plays that you see happen in upsets where guys are falling over, hitting shots, or getting a little extra going their way, where high risk plays are panning out, toe drags underneath, stuff like that. What I want to see more of was the wide shots of the new facility that Yale threw up there in Hartford.
Insane.
It's insane. And Josiah really did something. They're going to get some serious recruits from that thing. And Cam obviously had fun with himself about Yale's jerseys.
Yeah, I've talked about a few teams' kits thus far, but I think Yale's might be the sharpest in the country.
That's a bold statement. Another
just so sharp.
Yeah, I mean, overall, a fantastic day up in Hartford for the Yale
New Haven.
Bulldogs.
New Haven.
Oh, New Haven. Oh my God, from the Connecticut guy. Listen, I've been there once or twice for some Connie championships. I'm no stranger with New Haven, Connecticut. Also, the pizza capital in the world.
It pays.
Yeah, it's the late night show tonight, so we're gonna let that one slide. But again, that was not on the East Coast. Actually, should have been in Pennsylvania. I thought, due to just the magnitude of fans and just crowd and hype it would get, being at one of these schools, they decided to do a showcase down in North Carolina, I believe.
Yep, it was in Charlotte. Pretty cool stadium. I believe it looked eerily familiar to me, and the more I thought about it, I think that's where the Charlotte Hounds used to play.
Wow, great call. Penn State. Yeah. Talk about it.
I mean, first and foremost, somebody absolutely went off on the electric guitar for the national anthem at this game. It was just straight Jimi Hendrix Woodstock vibes. It was absolutely electric, and I don't care if there's a pun or pun intended or what. It was electric.
Yeah, there is a pun there. I see it.
It was pretty cool. I will say, I don't mind kind of drumming up this. I think they called it the Crown City Lacrosse Classic. I don't mind a good classic because typically it's a really good showcase for the game. Like I'm when I think of these classics, my mind goes immediately to like the Moe's Southwestern Grill Classic they used to have down in Florida and I think in Georgia a few times.
Yeah.
Like Ohio State had a big win over Denver there back in 2012. Like Jacksonville played some good games. Like there are always some good teams thrown in there. And it was always on.
There used to be one out in Orange County too, where Michigan would play like UNC.
Yep. And it was always on like Fox Sports or CBS Sports. Like there was a real purpose, right? Like it was a bang up broadcast, good commentators, like a bunch of different camera angles. You had on-field reporters. Like there was kind of a purpose to it. This Crown City Lacrosse Classic had no commentators.
An absolute gong show as far as production.
All right, let's listen to this, and I hope our listeners can appreciate this. 0 commentators. Yeah. Kyle and I were considering dialing in a Twitch and commentating the game ourselves. We might have to do that at some point this year or next year. There were no commentators.
Talk to whoever's in charge of putting those together and get the Snapping Towels crew in the booth for some live action.
I'll do it for free. There were no – all right, I've said it enough. No commentators. There was no scoreboard on the screen. So one of my complaints this year has been no shot clock. There was no scoreboard. I didn't know how much time was on the clock. I didn't know what the score was in the game. And the camera, there was one camera, and it was about the quality of my freshman year JV game films. It was really, really bad.
Yeah, the cameraman was getting lost in transition left and right. Like he was watching not through the lens.
This is an epic matchup, Penn State, and They just did these kids absolutely dirty. So, look, normally I'm okay with the classic. In this case, it was an F-, and it should have been Penn or Penn State. It would have been an electric atmosphere.
The halftime show with the local rapper was quite the ordeal as well. He was getting minimum love. I think most of the crowd was confused on what was happening on the field. if it was me, I would have called it, and I would have had the guitarist tune up another song and fly out there at the 50 and just make it rain for those people. Maybe even Purple Rain, something like that.
That's a great call. But enough about the event itself. Like the game was pretty epic, honestly. I mean, I had a ton of fun watching the game. The game was back and forth, really epic display of athletes on both teams. I don't know what happened in the first 3 games for Penn State. I don't know who was injured, who was suspended. I don't know how these kids were giving up 16 goals to Lafayette and high teens to several other teams. This defense is mean. They're big. They're athletic. They have a great keeper in Fayok.
Who's catching heat right now.
I mean, absolutely on fire, playing one of the best players on the field on Saturday. I don't know what happened, but these 2 teams are really good. They duked it out. Penn, actually, the kid that had the game winner with 1 second left was a Charlotte kid, so that's kind of cool. But
wow.
Yeah, no, Penn looked great. Dylan.
That's a wrinkle you'll only hear on Snapping Towels, people, right?
Yeah, you like that. Dylan Gergar, I kind of take back everything I said. I still love Sam Hanley, and I still think extremely highly of him as a player. Dylan Gergar is their best player. He's disgusting.
Yeah, that kid makes sick plays. The whole game. I love the way he plays. Super skilled. He had a Kyle Foote-esque freshman year of high school fake to the end line to the ex-attackman that wasn't there, but no one knew. His defenseman didn't know that. He caught him to take his eye off him as he steps in for a silky stroke low to high to the top right corner. That really opened my eyes and was a notable moment for me. But Penn in the middle of the field is great. They run. Their pulls are really talented off the ground. I think
BJ Farrar, absolute stud.
We keep mentioning him on the pod. We'll have to get him on somehow. These Penn kids are hard to get to these days. I don't know what that's about, but we need to get some inside source. Yeah, Hanley was good. He looks like a tree out there. I think he had a great game. I think he took his spots when he had them. I don't think he really forced a lot, which he's been doing early this season.
Yeah, I was honestly thrilled to see that.
He's kind of getting him more of a flow, played midfield the whole time, giving the Penn attack kind of gel. Like, I feel like it's a unit, whereas they stick Hanley down there. He feels like he needs to win a matchup.
Also, he's a guy that kind of needs a head of steam. He's not quick, and he's not particularly explosive in small spaces. Like, he needs a head of steam. He's a midfielder to me.
Yeah, and it's like you're not fooling anyone running him through the midfield or running him at attack. Like, he's not going to get a shorty. So just run him off picks and get creative with ways to get matchups, and that's what they overall ended up doing, which got him some great looks. So I think if they keep up that game plan with what they did against Penn State, they'll be cruising for wins the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think Penn's a top 5 team, and I think that means a lot. Like, Penn State is a real team too. I think we can throw the first few games out the window. They proved against Yale and Penn that they're for real. Fayok is as good as they come between the pipes, and they somehow still have Dan Kelly. He feels like a 7th-year senior to me.
Those Canadians end up staying a little extra longer.
Yeah, I don't know how they do that. Like, Dan Kelly's, an excellent midfielder. And sorry, I'm blanking on their names, but number 32 and 26 for Penn State are studs. Their goal, all of Penn State's goals in the fourth quarter were no joke. Like, there were no easy dumps. Like, it was all from really good offense, very much earned goals. Penn State's for real.
Yeah, no, I thought the game was super entertaining. A big hit of a big success, as you would say, spreading the game to people that don't get these matchups. Charlotte, you can see good lacrosse in North Carolina, but this was a cool stadium. Probably cool to get down in some warmer weather for these teams up freezing their nuts off in Philly. So I'd imagine that the game is an overall success for the people.
Yeah, and it's kind of amazing the athletes that Penn has. Like, Piper Bond.
Yeah.
Number 54, the
defensive midfielder,
is an absolute savage.
I love him chopping the feet when the guy's dodging it. Yeah. It's like, most kids are kind of self-conscious the way they look, like D'ing up the guy. They want to look cool, everything. This guy's breaking down foot fire, getting ready to jump a guy either way. I'm like, I can respect that. And he's, you know, I don't think it's a coincidence, but he's also rocking 5'4", the great Brian Urlacher.
Oh yeah, he looks like a. I mean, he looks more like a strong safety out there, but yeah, he's disgusting. The kids for Penn State, Mark Sickler and Matt Costin really went off for Penn State. Super impressed by them. I think you know Penn State's the only non-ranked team in the Big Ten right now. Penn State, I think, is good for one upset this year in the Big Ten that might, you know, kind of screw somebody out of an at-large bid.
Yeah, we'll see how they do. I mean, again, in that Penn State's heating up in that Big Ten race, you're gonna have a Rutgers Penn State play at some point, or you're gonna have a, you know, Maryland Penn State or some Michigan Rutgers. All
Ohio
these
State.
Matchups. Yeah, exactly. It could be a Penn State, Rutgers, you know, Michigan, Ohio State, just because of scheduling and records.
Kind of cannibalizing each other, yeah.
But they're going to be showdowns, and I wouldn't want to, in that semifinal game of the Big Ten, I wouldn't want to see Penn State at all.
No, not at
all.
With
a hot goaltender, if they keep this trend up, granted, we have seen them play with the worst of them, but we've also seen
them go toe-to-toe back-to-back weeks against what we think on Snap and Towels are top top 10 teams, Penn and Yale. I mean, I think Penn's a top 5 team. I really do. So
Me too. I'd say Yale top 10. Maybe
Yale's top 10 team. I think
ish.
Yeah, they're flirting 9 to 11. Yeah, I mean Ivy League 7-0. Another conference that remains strong is the Big Ten, as we keep talking about them.
Yeah, I mean, I got a text saying Cam can put that Delaware loss in his pipe and smoke it. I won't mention who it's from, but it's a dear friend and a Michigan alum, so I think our listeners can put that together. I think he was a captain.
I think I know exactly who that is.
And might have worn number 4, but
a really strong midfielder himself for the Maize and Blue. The Delaware talk from me, before I get into Michigan, the Delaware talk for me has probably come to an end until we get into conference tournament play. I still think they are poised to make noise in the CAA. I think they have a really good offense.
It's hard having these CAA teams making noise like UMass and like.
Yeah, no, I think it's a tough conference. But
Towson, and you see these CAA teams that are balling against these big teams, and you see Delaware dropping it to Michigan.
This is an absolute egg. I mean, look, I eat my words. They lost 18-8 to Michigan. I was ragging on Michigan for their first half of the season schedule.
As was I, because we want to see them play someone good, and they still haven't. They've played mediocre. They've played the worst, and they've played mediocre, and they took care of all of them. So respect, but
I think Marquette and Delaware are solid opponents, and to beat both of them back to back on a short week, like
with high numbers,
it's a good week for Michigan. They're 7-0. They're look, Michigan's white hot. They're off to the best start in program history. They're putting up insane numbers. This kid Zawada must be disgusting.
I think he's from North Carolina, but went to the Hill.
Yeah,
Canadian program led by Brody Merrill, the GOAT.
And they got this kid, Jack Benami, out of the midfield. He had 5 Gs against Delaware. He's really good. Look, Michigan's good. I'm going to give them credit.
I think he hit the gritty, too, off one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did.
Shout out, Jordy.
I also want to make this clear. Like, Kyle and I both ragged on Michigan hard, and I think in episode 2 for their early season out-of-conference schedule. I'm just going to read to you the gauntlet that they're about to go through. They have Harvard this coming week, and Snap and Towels is all over the Ivy League and then some. As I said before, I'll say it again. You can't sleep on Harvard.
I think
Harvard, Notre Dame, Hopkins, Maryland. Yeah, but like that's not an easy game. I mean, Ohio State they put up 12 on Ohio State. Like Michigan, if they take Harvard lightly, could lose to Harvard. I think Michigan's probably a better team, and they probably have more good players at this point. So respect to Michigan, but Harvard, Notre Dame, Hopkins, Maryland, Penn State, Rutgers, Ohio State is the remaining schedule for. Yeah,
they go. It's they're in conference. A lot of big
aside
schools.
From Harvard and Notre Dame.
Respect
for scheduling Notre Dame. I made an error in episode 2. I said, why don't they schedule Notre Dame? Clearly, I was out in left field. They have scheduled Notre Dame. They play Notre Dame.
I think I made a comment that was the first team they were going to play that was going to be any kind of good. So I think we covered it a little bit. We're being a little hard on ourselves. Michigan had a horrendous schedule that led them to this historical program start. Congrats to them. They've been putting up numbers and doing what they have to do. None of the players have control of the schedule. So whatever. They're just dealt the cards. Moving forward, they have a bear trap of a schedule that they're going to have to figure out. This Delaware game was a good test. I think Delaware –
They looked great. They dropped 18, and they held a
Delaware
really good Delaware offense
to
to 8 goals. Yeah. I think Delaware went up 3-0.
So it was a little bit of a, kind of a gut check for Michigan. They showed up at Michigan. I thought it looked like a beautiful day. It's probably freezing, but everyone's probably out there in T-shirts. Crazy asses. But yeah, no, I thought it was a great win for the program.
We're going to learn a lot about Michigan in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
And I'm excited for it. And I know a lot of their alumni are too. Clearly, they're listening to Snapping Towels. So shout out Michigan. And
appreciate it. All press is good press.
Josh Shawada is in the Snapping Towels pod.
Yeah, we'll have him on later in the year for sure.
We're waiting for that signature win. I'm gonna circle it. I'm gonna say it's gonna happen against Hopkins in 3 games.
I think personally, I don't want to rail on. I said I was done railing on Hopkins. I think Michigan's on another level than Hopkins right now. I think they have bigger fish to fry. Look,
we'll see.
Yeah,
Hopkins,
sure.
Hopkins goalie. Hopkins clears up some clears, and Brendan Grimes and Epstein. They beat a good Towson team. They beat Loyola. Let's relax on Hopkins a little bit. But
I guess maybe relax on Michigan a little bit. But I think if Michigan can, I'm just looking at their schedule right now. If Michigan beats Hopkins, which I'm predicting they're going to,
Josh Shawada's on the pod. Heard it here first. 3 weeks out.
If they can go 2-1, their last 3 games, they have Penn State, Rutgers, Ohio State. If Michigan can go 2-1 in those games, that's a huge statement for the Michigan Wolverines lacrosse program. Maybe heading into the Big Ten tournament, definitely heading into 2023. Massive statement.
Yeah, unfortunately, with their strength of schedule, they're not going to get one if they don't win the Big Ten.
I disagree with you. If they
beat Penn State and Ohio State,
they still have opportunities to have like really marquee wins. Like they have Notre Dame, Maryland, Penn State, Rutgers, and Ohio State left. Like they still have opportunities to upset some teams and be at least a bubble team.
Okay, so I think Harvard is going to be definitely the bottom of the Ivy League. They're not being Cornell, Princeton.
Dartmouth's going to be the doormat of the Ivy League, but
the next, obviously every league has that.
But the Ivy League might be the best conference.
I'd still say it's the ACC.
Yeah, I mean,
for sure,
probably the ACC, but I think the Ivy League is making a strong case for maybe
the Ivy League's extremely stout. But a Harvard win's not going to do much for them or their strength of schedule.
Nope, no, it's not. Notre Dame.
They're not going to beat Notre Dame.
Probably not.
Hopkins, they have a great chance of beating. It's at Hopkins. It's going to be a dogfight, and I'm excited for that game. That's a game that's going to be on ESPN, and Snapping Towels is going to be locked into that game because we've got a lot of shit talk we've been doing about Michigan. But we're saying here, I think they win that game versus Hopkins. It's tough to say you're going to win. You're going to have Maryland come to your place, and you're going to beat them. Penn State is on a hot streak. They're going to be tough to handle at Penn State. Rutgers is undefeated this year.
Rutgers is loaded with
an absurd amount of talent.
The Big Ten is disgusting. They go through the schedule. Let's just talk about it. The Big Ten, are you kidding me? I mean, look, Michigan has a hell of an opportunity to catapult their program to the next level. Like right now, they're 7-0. They're rolling. Vibes are probably as high as they've ever been in Ann Arbor in the lacrosse program. Honestly, being 7-0 and it's just absolutely stomping what's a pretty decent Delaware team. Like they're about to head into like a high-profile Big Ten conference play. All these games are going to be on TV. Snapping Towels has a Big Ten network login, so we'll be watching all of them. It's a special opportunity for the boys in Ann Arbor, so respect to them.
Absolutely. Hopefully some slugfest will be coming out of the Big Ten as we imagined. Rutgers Stony Brook was nothing short of a slugfest.
Kind of absurd, right? 17-16 final. I think Rutgers was down 4 goals twice in the second half. Once like midway through the fourth quarter. Rutgers can score goals quickly. My favorite part about Rutgers is we've talked about Bartolo a lot and Knobloch a good amount. They always have like just some other guy who's like their leading or second scorer in a game. This week it's Ross Scott with 4 and 1, this junior attackman.
He's been a staple. He's such a glue guy on the offense. I think a lot of the offense goes through him, and he's a very good ball handler as well as distributor, and he can really canvas opportunities. So not getting as much attention as these other guys, I think he's a fit any team would be happy to have.
Yeah, no doubt. Rutgers had 5 guys with multiple goals, so it just kind of speaks to their depth. Rutgers is really good.
That's a game these guys leave, and they're both teams are a little banged up. I think that's an absolute battle on the island. I've been to the stadium. It's a great place to play a lacrosse game in the early spring with good weather. Bartolo, 5 points. He's the dominant midfielder. You also made a point earlier in the pre-show. Penn had a stacked roster during this COVID time, and we didn't get to see it. And we're kind of seeing glimpses like what it was, but we're seeing a lot of these Penn guys at other schools that were all on the same roster at one point, which is super interesting.
And on top of that, they have 2 or 3 guys that were either in the PLL or still in the PLL that were a part of that kind of 2018, 2019, and into 2020 Penn era. I remember in 2019 watching all 3 Yale Penn games and thinking to myself, how did they get all these kids in? How did they get all these kids into school? I'm serious. I felt like I was watching an ACC game. All these kids were massive. They're all disgusting. Their pulls were huge, covering insane ground. I was like, how do they get all these kids into school? I remember thinking that. So,
lacrosse has some kids that hits the books, and they're also good athletes. So it's kind of what the sport brings a little bit. So I'm not too surprised. The Ivy League's always had Twarton finalists, Twarton winners, great players. I think they can lean on academics a little bit, and it's kind of easier for the admissions to accept a lacrosse kid with a 3.5 in high school with some good SATs than a 2.8 player for football. It's just like one of those things where you'll get the elite lacrosse player, good chances he'll have good grades. It's kind of like one of those things. I feel like that comes with the sports. But you had an Ivy League player on your board. Tell me about your top performer.
My top performer, Eric Peters. I think the
Tendy love on snapping towels is through the roof as well.
It's pretty damn consistent too.
Bullies, hit us up.
Seriously, get on the show. Look, a 10-8 win over a bona fide top 3 team in the Georgetown Hoyas, and you have 16 saves. You're my player of the week every week.
I love that. Yeah, no, I mean, he was the anchor in an upset, and that's what you need. It starts with the goalie play. If your goalie play doesn't show up against a snapping towels top 3 team, you're not going to come away with that 10-8 win. On my side of the ball, I went with the opposite. I went with the guy who absolute hosed the goalie and is an absolute goalie's nightmare. I went with an easy pick. You could probably pick him most weeks. Chris Gray with his fourth quarter show. I love a guy who just takes the ball in his own hands and ends a high scoring, high velocity offense game. I thought it was, I had to tip my cap to it, the way he's stretching the D, plucking corners. It was an insane display of offense, and I love to see it. And that's why he's going to be the unanimous number 1 pick in the PLL draft.
Love it. He'll be the number 1 pick in the PLL draft. He'll be a cornerstone for a PLL franchise for 5 to 7 years at least. And I think one thing about Chris Gray is he's kind of got a little bit of Rob Pennell in him. I'm not comparing their games, although they do have some similarities on the field, but the commitment to the game and their body, and I think their lofty goals and aspirations within this game are pretty similar. Rob Pennell still around, still a real ex-attackman in the PLL.
Yeah.
I think Chris Gray is going to be around for a decade.
No, I love that. Some digging we did here at Snapping Towels due to Cam really going down this rabbit hole of where a niche is. Cam found out on Twitter that he had just taken a position at the Carolina Panthers and will no longer be calling college lacrosse. So I was wrong. I thought he'd be in the mix with Cotter. Sad news here on Snapping
Really
Towels.
disappointing. I am a massive Anish fan. I loved what he had going with Kark and Quint. It was a special trio. They had a nice 5 or 6 year run and really cool story. Like they kind of shed some light on Anish's backstory. He had no exposure to the game of lacrosse before ultimately going to Syracuse University, one of the best journalism schools in the country. No coincidence. Seems like half of ESPN's roster went to Syracuse. Anish being one of them.
Broadcasting journalism, especially.
Yeah, broadcast journalism. Yeah, correct. And he fell in love with the game while being a broadcast journalist student at Syracuse, and ultimately became a really, really epic color commentator for lacrosse, and had a really great chemistry with two of the best to ever do it in Quentin Kark, and we're sad to see him go for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a fan as well, and I think he brought a lot of life to the game. I think he brought an outsider's perspective, like a non-bias. Quint's always got his Hopkins bone to pick, always putting them in the rankings higher than they should, and being really biased on their calls. And you see a little bit with Kark and Q. So Anish brought the middle ground there and was a staple on Memorial Day weekend. So it's sad to see him go, but congrats on the new opportunity. And I guess we'll hear him on Sundays with the NFL. Hopefully we'll catch a Carolina Panthers game. We'll see how he's doing.
Yeah, I think he's like a local. I think he
like
lives in Charlotte.
Reporter. Is he doing
I'm not sure sideline
stuff?
reporter or not. He lives in Charlotte, and I think it's kind of a lifestyle career move for him, like leaving ESPN. And I think he's doing local Panthers stuff. That's kind of the vibe I got from it. But I know he'll do a bang up job as always.
Absolutely. Our first
in other
PLL
news, yes, Tahoka.
We're going to be talking about the PLL slowly as it picks up with the news and with them getting their season going. So we'll be in these kind of riff sessions. We'll touch on it until the season starts. And the episodes will plan to be PLL focused mainly. Tahoka Nanticoke getting picked up by the Chaos is no surprise. It was an aggressive move by the Chaos, and I love it. He plays on the Bandits, which is, I think, 90% of the Chaos's offense. They all live together and play box together. So I think it just makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, great pickup for the Chaos. Their offense is probably has the most box flavor in the PLL. He's just a natural fit. Byrne is one of his teammates in the NLL. Who do they play for? The Roughnecks, I think. I love the Chaos's offense. I love the addition.
No, not the Roughnecks. They play for the Bandits.
Yeah, it's the Bandits.
Buffalo
right.
Bandits.
They play for the Buffalo Bandits.
Yeah.
Mac
Dane
O'Keefe,
Smith, Josh Bryan,
pretty sick. A lot of them play for the Chaos.
Chase Frazier.
Yeah.
A lot of Canadian influence there.
Getting back to the Chaos, though, like they have sweet Canadian influence. I think one of the most epic drop-ins, he didn't have a ton of goals this past summer. He had some really big goals, but one of the most epic drop-ins is Mac O'Keefe. Just like a classic American sniper to add that whole different element to your offense, which is like, kind of a lot of pick play, a lot of stuff in tight, a lot of twisters, backhands, and you got this kid Mac O'Keefe who can literally hammer it from 15. And he was doing it. He was hammering it from 15 and 16 in college, like against Michigan and Rutgers. He's literally still doing it in the PLL. So yeah, I love the Chaos.
He has an absolute stroke on him. It's a thing of beauty, and he's the goal record holder in college for a reason. I think it translates perfectly. Another thing that's been a serious topic of conversation on Snapping Towels behind the scenes is the damn Inside Lacrosse ads clearly they're just scrapping for a coin to make this website generate some kind of profit. I don't want to quote Cam, but I think Cam had a great take on what it's like.
No, yeah, I don't think I'm going to go there, but it honestly, I would pay $3 a month. I'd pay $2.99 a month, and I think most inside lacrosse junkies would as well to have access to that website with no ads.
If anyone's familiar with websites that you probably shouldn't be on, it's probably like one of those, a good comparison that just gives you viruses. The ads, they break up
Pop-ups
the
and ads.
roster. They break up the roster with ads. It's so bootleg. The ads are janky. They're not even lacrosse related. It's kind of an unfortunate little hiccup, and this is the worst I've seen. I've been on Inside Lacrosse for the last 15 years. This is the worst ads I've ever seen being done. So, we don't want a subscription, but honestly, at the end of the day, for integrity purposes, they do great work, and they really help us out on the stats side of the game here at Snapping Towels. So we would pay it forward.
All right, enough about last week. Quick picks. Let's rip through them, Kyle. UNC, UVA, who do you got?
UVA, I think UNC's defense is yet to show up to a game. I think the UVA offense has yet to not show up to a game in a serious way. And that's like all 8 guys on their offense show up every week to bury goals. So I'm going with Virginia, another tilt in Chapel Hill. No surprise there. I think they've had 8 games at home this year. But, yeah, I'm going Who's.
Yeah, I'm going with the Cavaliers. I think it'll be a good game. I think Chris Gray will show out for sure. UNC is going to score a bunch of goals in transition, but UVA, like we said earlier, the Denver-UNC game was a great matchup for Denver. I think great would be an absolute understatement. I think UVA's attack is going to absolutely slice UNC's close D up. Penn State, Cornell.
Also, just to touch on that game, Chris Gray Cade Sawstead not playing. We still have to figure that out if he's not playing. If you don't see number 11 in the lineup, it could be a feast day for Chris Gray if they get the ball in their defense and Colin Krieg stands on his head. So it could be closer than we're saying. I'm still taking UVA. Penn State, Cornell. Very impressed with Cornell last weekend. I'm going to take the Big Red again.
How about Penn State scheduling back-to-back the top 3 Ivy League teams?
I love it. Why not? If you're going to play any out-of-conference game, you're going to want to go ACC or Ivy League, and clearly the ACC has been booked. So,
yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm going with Cornell as well. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be a kind of a classic Cornell game. I think Cornell wins this game, 11-8, 11-9.
Ohio State, Notre Dame, a classic football rivalry.
Buckeyes.
I'm going Notre Dame.
Upset alert, Buckeyes.
I think it's a breakout game for Notre Dame, breakthrough, whatever you want to call it. I think their offense really got gelling at the too late in the Maryland game. We saw Jack Boys. Dobson's going to clean it up. Kavanaugh's are going to go off. That's a Jesuit win.
Rutgers, Princeton.
Actually, check that. I'm taking Rutgers. They've got too many hammers, too many weapons. I'm taking Rutgers in a big win versus a hot Princeton team.
I'm going Princeton. Princeton's white hot. I think Rutgers. I think it's gonna be a really good game. I think it's gonna be like 15-14. I think both teams are gonna put up a lot of goals. It's gonna be a really fun game to watch. I hope that's at Rutgers, so we definitely have that on the Big Ten. Yeah. I think Princeton comes away here with a W for the Ivy League.
Yale, Denver. Who do you got? Yale. I mean, here at Snapping Towels, we can always count on Cam picking an Ivy League school in the pick'em. I think that's no stranger.
I've been right almost every time, Coach.
I'm just kidding. I'm going with Denver. I think they're athletic in the transition. I think Yale kind of showed some flaws against UMass, even though UMass was playing them to the bone. I think Denver's extremely skilled offensively. I believe it's in Denver. I think the Pios get the altitude going their way. I'm taking the Pios and their old coach.
The TD Earl schools. I think it'll be a good one. Loyola Duke.
I'm taking my
Do I
Hounds coming
even
off
have to
their.
ask?
That's a staple. I'm a loyal person. I'm taking my Hounds. This is a routine game for them. That's still on the contract. They play every year. It's at Loyola. I think it's a huge breakthrough game for Loyola to show that they have talent and they're turning the ship coming off their first win at Lafayette. I'm taking the Hounds. Who do you got?
I think Loyola's leaving the weekend 1-5. Duke's going to win. I don't think they're going to win big. I think Loyola's going to come out play tough. Like they're 1-4 right now. They're a desperate Hounds team. I don't think you ever want to play a desperate Hounds team
At home.
But I think Duke's rolling. I don't know if they have an answer for Nikai Montgomery. I don't know if they have an answer for Lawley, O'Neal, all those guys. I think Duke wins.
Penn Villanova.
Penn.
Next door neighbors to each other. It should be a great atmosphere where if it's at Penn or Villanova, I'm not sure.
Penn's going to win.
I'm going with Penn as well. Villanova's got some offense. Penn's too strong. They're a top 5 team in my book.
Penn's another team that's scheduled a bunch of really good Ivy League teams back to back to back. Penn's got a high-flying offense. Sorry, yeah, Villanova.
Yeah.
Penn being one of the teams they've scheduled. Brown, Yale, and Penn back to back to back. That's no joke. Yeah, these two teams are no strangers to each other. Probably share restaurants, share some other things too.
Amen.
Penn all day.
Michigan, Harvard.
Michigan. I'm rolling with the maize and blue. I'm on the train. I'm on the wagon. Let's go, Decker.
I'm going Michigan as well. It's their first. I mean, it's still a mediocre test. The next week's their biggest test. I think they're rolling. They're looking to put up 17 to 20 goals as they do every game. So roll, go blue.
Who's your favorite matchup of the weekend?
Due to the injury late in the game that I keep talking about because it really hurt me to see, and it really is I feel like gonna hurt a high flying Who's team. I'm going UNC Virginia. I think Chris Gray is a little, this is always a game, no matter the rankings of the team. Huge rivalry. I'm saying UNC at home. They play a low turnover ball. I think it's a better game than people might think outside the sport.
I think it'll be a good game. One kind of interesting thing about these two programs is they share a lot of recruits. They're both going after the same kids for the most part. And that's, both teams, players know the opposing coaches very well and vice versa. So you better believe this is a deep week of prep on both of these teams. But yeah, no, I think it's going to be a hell of a game. I got Rutgers Princeton. I think that's, I think at the beginning of the year, I wouldn't have said that. We were semi high on Rutgers. You were a little higher than I was.
Well, they're good. They're still good.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying at the beginning of the year, like you were high on them. I was like, yeah, I think Rutgers might be good, but they're really good. And I wasn't high on Princeton. I didn't know anything about Princeton. So I think this Rutgers Princeton game is going to be pretty epic. Princeton coming off a massive upset against Georgetown and a solid showing against Maryland the week before. So Princeton's for real. I think it's
Princeton's going to need a Georgetown-esque effort, and Rutgers is going to need to maybe step it up from a Stony Brook team. This team's more talented and better in the middle of the field with Song than Stony Brook. So it's safe to say both teams need to – Princeton, needs to play a similar game, and Rutgers needs to respect what Princeton could do. And I think, they got Georgetown, they might not get Rutgers. It's kind of like they woke up a Scarlet Knight team that might have slept on them.
Yeah, hell of an out-of-conference schedule for Princeton. Both teams coming off big wins. Also, I might be forcing this a little bit. The first half of the sentence is true. In-state rivalry, both New Jersey teams. I'm not sure if they're rivals,
I don't think Princeton wants to associate with Rutgers. I think it's a little bit of a high-class, low-class situation. Unfortunately, I think Rutgers has earned their respect more so in the last 5 to 10 years rather than traditionally. Rutgers hasn't been a program that's really been on Princeton's radar. But yeah, I'd love to call it an in-state rivalry this year.
Roger that.
Coach, quick shout out to our editor, producer, man behind the scenes, Stephen Dodd. He keeps this pod churning. So, and shout out to our fans. We got to give them a lot of love too. A lot of listeners. I'm always asking people if they listen. People listen. So, got to give them some love as well.
Yeah, no, huge appreciation to Stephen Dodd. He's done a hell of a job keeping this thing rolling for us. We'd be in a much different spot without him. So we really appreciate Steve. And yeah, much love to our listeners. We appreciate the support. We're going to keep it rolling. Had to do an after-hours show tonight to keep it rolling. But yeah, appreciate it. Kyle.
Yeah, my TV's firing on in the background. It knows it's ready. It's like it's time. I need to be watched.
It can feel it. Sleeping. It knows you. It's listening to you.
This is great. Episode 6 in the book, Snapping Towels. Cheers.
Coach, be good.